Programming A, let me show you a couple features that may save you some time in Game Lab. So we're still drawing shapes. We're still in the first unit, code.org Game Lab. And there are some features like calculating. I'm sure you've looked at lots of coordinates and you've done a good amount of calculating in your heads. And let me pull up a program of sorts. My projects, and last time I left you off making a whole bunch of shapes, right? I'll add on to this pen I have up here. I'll zoom in a bit in case you want to drag and drop similar blocks, okay? And I'll try to keep all of this code projected up here. All right, so if I run my code, I see that I have, okay, a bunch of black shapes. We went over color. We went over this teal color from that code.org video last Friday. We went over some new functions, like down here, we have a regular polygon that was repeated a bunch of times. And where did I get this code? I clicked on, yes, I stole it shamelessly, right? Copy and pasted, that's exactly right. I hovered over a regular pentagon, and this is what we call the documentation. See examples, okay? Regular polygon. And it tells me how to use it. It gives me handy dandy examples. And I copied this stuff over here. That showed me all the different ways I can use the regular polygon. So that's one way you can save time as we move towards a text-based language. You can copy and paste this from the documentation, from the C examples. Close that. Go to show text over here. And then you can paste it in. If everything is done correctly, when you switch back to blocks, they turn them line by line into the corresponding blocks. Dragging and dropping is great, but typing and changing all these things sometimes gets tedious. So that's why that show text is there. As you work with more complicated functions, maybe we'll try to make an arc and figure out how that works. So I drag that to the very bottom, I reset and run, and suddenly I have this huge arc in my way. Oh no, I don't want that. Did you know you can make things transparent by having no fill over here? Okay, reset and run. Suddenly I see a very light outline from the Olympic rings assignment. Maybe I want to make that outline bigger. Here's stroke weight being 10. So you're pressing harder with your paintbrush, and suddenly on the side you see that. Right. We can fiddle around with these coordinates some more. Okay, it goes all the way up to 800. Maybe let's see what happens if I change the second point, which represents, I think it's width and height. If ever you're unsure, again, we hover over this, click on See Examples. First thing's XY coordinate. That looks like the center. And then they have a start and stop angle. Okay, so down here, X, horizontal pixel, Y, it's Y pixel, okay? So the center, width and height, start and stop. So then my width and height is now 400, my center is down here. If I change this to maybe 200, I should get like an oval shape. Yep. And if I move the center, show grid is very useful. If you hover over the center, you can see that's 200, 200. So I want to center my arc. So it becomes obvious on what I'm going to do. Cool. So now the center is over here, and now we see I have a fourth of an arc. Where does that 1/4 come from? It comes from the measurements over here, 0 and 90. If you think back to Algebra 2 pre-calculus, I think the unit circle, 0 degrees is here, or 360. 90 degrees is up here, 180. And here's 270. So if I want to make an arc that's on the upper left-hand corner, I think if I change these numbers to being start at where 90 is, stop at where 80 is, my arc should move, oop, definitely not. So it looks like it goes the other way. So more things that are unlike math. 90 is down here, 180 is over here, 270 is up here. Way to rock our worlds, code.org. Okay. And now one last test. If I go to 180 and then stop at 270, I should now see the upper, yep. So this is your reference unit circle, quote unquote. They go clockwise to measure degrees versus counterclockwise, which we're used to if you've taken pre-calculus or Algebra 2. I forget which one it is. Okay, so again, there's some experimenting. The new stuff I wanted to show you is in here. You can do math equations. So for national flags, it might be very useful for you to draw a star. If you borrowed the star from, I think, shape over here, Okay, see example, here's a star, right? They already did the fancy calculating for you to an extent. I'm going to show text, copy and paste that at the very end, put it there, go back to blocks, okay, and then I should see a star right there, okay? Notice it's at the center of my screen, and you're like, okay, that's great. How do I move around this star? You probably started changing these coordinates. And then notice, wait, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 coordinates you have to modify. That's annoying. You're going to save yourself some time by doing those calculations, making use of these blocks over here. Okay, blocks can go within blocks. So for example, maybe I wanted to scale my shape down by 2. I can do the division over here, drag this in, oops, not dividing within dividing, oh gosh, go out, go away, delete, okay, 200 divided by 2, over here, 100 divided by 2, so on and so forth. The equivalent is going in here and typing divide by 2, divide by 2, oh gosh, divide by 2, 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 divide by 2. And then we should see a star that is moved over. If I put the original star right beside it, you can see that it's a dilation about the point 0, 0 in the upper left-hand corner. So a bit geometry of review for you all. So you can change size, and then you can play around with the math some more to figure out, okay, how do I fix its location to where I want it to be? See, okay? So if you notice, here are my rulers, right? There's my point of dilation. It opens as a cone, and that's half as big. I'll leave it to you to figure out how to control the coordinates. Notice there's no center for these stars so far. You still got to move all 5 points at once. I'm trying to not make it too mathy, but you are transforming a very complicated star function. So if you're in pre-calculus and later on to calculus, it's a bigger idea. It's very mathematical. It may not feel that way, but it is. Okay? Draw a big star. Draw a smaller, half as big star. Any questions from computer programming A right now? No? So as a hint to move things left and right, you may want to try adding or subtracting. And so blocks within blocks within blocks. Remember that order of operations are followed. So if I added 10, a very particular corner of the small star is going to move over ever so slightly. It looks like it was this one right here. It moved that way. I could be wrong. But you can play around with this and see. Computers are great at calculating numbers. Let them do that. So you can focus on the shape, the relationship between these numbers. What else? So I have arc. If you're interested in more arcs, if you're curious on what's available, you can just look up code.org game lab. And here's the special word that you'll likely see on your quiz, documentation. That's the manual of how it works. So then when you go here, notice this is exactly what they posted when you click on the example. Now you go under drawing, you can click here, maybe regular polygon, and see the same exact stuff. Definitely browse through here. Later, when we move on to p5.js on CodePen, your documentation is your best friend, right? I may serve as walking documentation because I've done this so often, but really I get it from there, right? If I don't know the answer, I'm going to look here, read through the manual, figure out the specifics, something I overlooked to figure out my problem. As a reminder, comments are there to help you organize. As you think about the next assignment after your national flag, you will likely explore even more of these drawing blocks, and once you feel like you exhausted what's possible here, you can definitely move on to setting up a CodePen account, make fancy arcs and curves. There's much more drawing capabilities available there. This concludes my lecture.